Hey all, Christoph here. I reviewed the Wallet Scrutiny website and I just wanted to share some feedback and thoughts for our next conversation on Tuesday, I think, as discussion material. So one of the things that I try to think about is some quick fixes that we can potentially do that do not affect the whole methodology and everything so much, that they're fairly easy to implement. I think one of those fixes is to reorganize the homepage a little bit. If you look at these two screens here, there's just a lot going on. It's a really long page. A lot of the space is taken up here by this downloads per category page with these super massive icons. And really something what the kind of the end user is looking for is actually just this section here. And that is kind of buried in the middle here. So if we think about our users, there are kind of two main scenarios. Either I already have a wallet and I want to see if it's secure. I'll type it here in the search. Or I don't have a wallet and I just want to find one, in which case, this here is kind of the main area of interest. The information is pretty good, but I don't think that has to be so prominent. I also think the publications are great, but maybe that belongs more further down or more of an about page. And I think the downloads per category, on the one hand, they're kind of hard to interact with because some of these images, these icons are just super huge. So I think it's really kind of secondary or tertiary information, and that doesn't have to be so prominent. And the most recent reviews or updates, this is also something that could simply become part of these filters here. So if we do that, then here is a brief mock-up of what that could look like. So let's take a look. The search is now in the header, so it's accessible on every single page in the same position, also something pretty common pattern. And then right when I get on this landing page, I understand this is about security reviews of Bitcoin wallets, and I see a grid of wallets here. Here in this specific component, one of the things that confused me here when looking at the website right now was that this filter was above wallets. It wasn't really clear that there's a filter for this grid. So my recommendation would be to make this a little bit more obvious. I also think it's not helpful that Google Play is selected by default because let's go back to this page again. I land here, I see wallets, and I see 8 of them. 3 are outdated, 1 is obsolete. So it seems like there are not a lot of reviews here. So I would make sure that Google Play is not selected by default, but maybe there's an all section. And that is also probably a pretty quick fix that can be done. So that would be one thing. And then, maybe the about and media can be broken up into a dedicated page. And maybe there's something like review stats that's also in a secondary page. So that would really focus the homepage on the kind of this primary use case of the user finding a wallet they already have, or finding a new one that they want to use. Then second thing that I would like to chat about here is the methodology. And you have to let me know if I'm completely off on this one. So when I reviewed the methodology page, my understanding here is that this is kind of a top to bottom thing. So the tester works from top to bottom here, and then ends up with one single one of these verdicts. But what I'm confused by, or what confused me when reading this, is that whether it's reproducible or not really has nothing to do, for example, whether it's custodial or whether it has send and receive. So one of the things that I try to do here is split this single verdict into multiple categories. So let's take a look. For example, whether an application is fake or vaporware, I think that really deserves like a big header. That's kind of the only thing where it's like warning sign, this one stay away from. Then the other ones I split up into reproducible. So this is a category here. Then we have custody as a category. And then we have whether the wallet features as a category. And this Bitcoin and Lightning, I just kind of threw that in. There could be other categories in here that maybe the team deems important. And whether a wallet is released or not, I think that could be part of this release here. Maybe it says unreleased or in development or whatever it is. So that's how I would kind of split this up a little bit more to get away from this intense single verdict, single tag here. And then let's take a look. I can expand one right here in this place, so I get to understand what this actually means. Maybe this is another short summary with an even more extensive summary on that we link out to on the methodology page. But basically, I shouldn't have to dig around somewhere else on the site in order to make sense of it. Same goes for the homepage. When I see a verdict like reproducible, I should be able to hover it and get a very, very brief summary here. Here you can also see kind of the 4 categories. I went away from this tag display because I think let's take a look. I think this is just really overpowering. The red is the very first thing that I see. Red seems, super serious, like something's wrong, which I think we should reserve that for scam and vaporware. So let's say we have a gradient from green, which means everything's amazing, over yellow to red, with yellow being things where maybe the user needs to make a personal decision, maybe they're okay with custody, maybe they're not, and red being a really serious sign that's something they should stay away from. And so here you can see there's a jump to verdict section here. This is something that I try to bring up and make it accessible right where you see the verdict itself. And here you can also see the search wallet input field here, which gets a little bit lost here in the corner. That's something that would move into the header. So those are the primary things that I looked at. There's some other details like adding links to all of these, adding labels to all of these links instead of just icons, so they're a little bit easier to read. I did not dig much deeper into some of the other subpages or whatnot. For the filters here on the homepage, I created 2 variations. Let's bring this over here real quick. So if we want to have just a fairly straightforward experience, we have these little filter boxes here. And if we want to expose those, which is visually a little bit more heavyweight, but it's also a little bit more obvious how things work, we could have a sidebar here. So here in the operating system, I see all the options that are available for operating systems. Here under reproducible, I can see that this is kind of a scale from no source to obfuscated, build error, and that only one thing would apply, and that some of these things are better than others. So this is a little bit more exposed, visually a little bit heavier. You can kind of make a call on those, just throwing out a couple different options. So yeah, that's I didn't really do much else around some of the other sections. I feel like the clarity around these tests and verdicts is really the primary thing. It probably requires a lot of discussion. I'm sure it affects your whole process and everything else. So just kind of take these as maybe a little bit of feedback, maybe a few ideas, and then we can use our upcoming call to figure out if any of this is applicable and makes sense. And thanks for tuning in.